All right, so hi everyone, my name is Allison. I am an SRA Hub advisor, and today we're going to be talking about how to revamp your resume statement. So, a resume is something that's super important. It's needed to apply to jobs, internships, scholarships, all of those things, and so it's really important to have a very strong resume, and we're going to talk about how to improve the statement that you make on it. Okay, so let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, so let's get started. Okay, so what is an accomplishment statement? It's basically the bullet points on your resume that describe all of the activities that you've put on it, and it should tell the reader concrete details about what you achieved. So let's take a look at this one. So this person worked at Starbucks for little less than 2 years, and as their accomplishment statement, they said that they provided customer service to over 25 customers per hour and answered questions about menu items, which resulted in a 21% increase in sales. So that is actually a very strong resume statement, and we'll go over what they did to make it like that. All right, so why are accomplishment statements important? So what you say can make or break your chances of moving to the next round. So usually when you're interviewing for a job, you'll go through several different rounds of interviews. So if you submit your resume and your cover letter, they'll start off with like a phone interview and then maybe a second interview, and then you'll have your final interview. And then based off of those 3 interviews, you'll be given a job offer. So if we look at this one, so we just read the example of the really strong resume statement, but if we look at the one above it, this is what it previously said. So it says that they took orders, they made coffee, handled money, and provided customer service. So those are all really good things to note. But those bullet points are super, super simple. And the thing with resumes is that you want to be as detailed as possible, in order to show how you contributed in that position. So we already read the statement, but they changed it to say provided customer service to over 25 customers per hour and answered questions about menu items, which resulted in a 21% increase in sales. So I think a good difference to note between the two is that in the first one, they said that they took orders and they made coffee, but already in their in the description, they said that they were a barista. That was the position that they had at Starbucks. And so when you read barista, you already kind of know what they do. You know that they take orders and that they make coffee. So those are things that you can omit because those are very obvious. But the customer service is a really good thing that they brought up. Okay, so how to write a strong accomplishment statement. So the step 1 is action verbs. So instead of using these verbs like helped, taught, organized, made, fixed, or worked with, you can use stronger verbs like advocated, facilitated, monitored, composed, overhauled, or collaborated, or any of the other words down there. So the reason why you want to use strong action verbs is because they're a lot more descriptive than helped or organized. Because while those things do say something, they're not as descriptive as using like advocated or facilitated. Okay, so step 2 is using the SAR method. So SAR stands for situation, action, and result. So let's take a look at this example. So this person, their job title was Dance Marathon Outreach Coordinator, and their description for right now says organize outreach efforts for the club. So very, very vague and very short accomplishment statement. But by using the SAR method, they're going to be able to make this a lot better. So the situation, what did you do? So in this situation, they implemented an outreach strategy as an outreach coordinator would do. And then for the action, how did you do it? So they implemented an outreach strategy by delegating phone banking and flyer distribution tasks to club members. And then finally, what is the result? So what was accomplished? And I would argue this is probably the most important part of your accomplishment statement. So you implemented an outreach strategy by delegating phone banking and flyer distribution tasks to club members, and the result was it resulted in an increase in donations and more students joining our club. So they said that what they did, how they did it, and then also what was the outcome of that. And that's really important to say, because otherwise it's kind of like, what was the point of you doing those things? So always try to make sure to put in the result. Okay. And then I think we're going to pause, and I'm going to do the attention check really quick to make sure that you all are paying attention. All right. So there is the statement. See which one, see if it's true or false. All right, so you all are very smart cookies. The answer is true. So adding more details would greatly improve this statement. So like we said, organized isn't exactly like the strongest verb. So they could have said like facilitated or coordinated or something, meetings between teachers and parents, and they're also missing the result. So they could say facilitated meetings between teachers and parents, which improved student communication by something percent or something like that. All right, so thanks everyone for doing that. Let's go back to the presentation. All right, so step 3 is to quantify. So we already kind of mentioned this in the attention check, but you want to use numbers and concrete details whenever possible. So although what they said in the previous statement was already really strong, this one is an even stronger one. So we said, implemented a 3-week outreach strategy by delegating phone banking and flyer distribution tasks to 24 club members, which resulted in a $1,500 increase in donations and 12 more students joining our club. So by adding those numbers in, it makes the statement a lot stronger. And so if you're able to do that and pull numbers and statistics, that can make your accomplishment statements super, super strong. And as you can see, the responsibilities that this person had as an outreach coordinator wasn't even like that special. It wasn't a super hard job. All they did was they told their fellow club members to phone bank, which is just calling people, and to distribute flyers, which probably means to, you know, post them on campus. So they're really, really simple things, but when you add in numbers and layers to your accomplishment statement, it can make them sound really strong. Like it sounds like this person did a lot of good stuff for their club because they were able to add in those those really important details that made their position sound really strong. So even if the task that you do in your position is very like mundane, it might not sound that exciting. Even at Starbucks, you know, the person who was a barista, you know, there was more than just taking orders and making coffee. So you really want to add in layers to your accomplishment statement to make them sound really strong. All right, so this is another example. So in this one, they were a tutor, and the description is that they tutored 4th graders with their math homework. So obviously this description or this accomplishment statement could use a lot of work because it's very vague right now. Okay, so the verb is tutor, which is good. So they already chose a better word than helped or assisted. So they used the word tutor. The situation is that they tutored 4th graders. And then the action is that they tutored 4th graders on their math homework by communicating with their teacher about the curriculum and customizing lessons based on each student's needs. So it's already a very, very big improvement, right? But then we add in the result, which is that students finished the school year on grade level, which is really important for teachers and for schools, right? They want to make sure that their students are on grade level and they don't fall behind. Okay, and then when they quantified it, they said they tutored 17 4th graders on their math homework by communicating with their teacher about the curriculum and customizing lessons based on each student's needs, resulting in 85% students finishing the school year on grade level. So they were able to add in that 17, which is a pretty large number of students to be tutoring, and then 85% finishing on school level. So the majority of students finishing where they're supposed to be. So that's really good. All right, so this is a very quick webinar, so I'm just going to leave you with a couple of final tips. So you don't want to write actual sentences. I know that the statements that we had were quite long, but as you can see, they start with a verb and not a noun. So in that sense, they're not like complete sentences, but they can be as long as you want. Try to keep them concise, but they don't have to be actual sentences because they're mostly going to start with a verb. And like I said, start all your accomplishment statements with a verb, but don't repeat verbs. So as we saw, try not to use very basic verbs like organized or helped. Try to use something that's a bit more descriptive. And then if you have a lot of things on your resume, try not to repeat verbs. Try to use a synonym just to vary a little bit. And then pay attention to your past or present tense. So it's very important to make yourself aware of this, because if you're in a position that you're currently doing, make sure that you're using present tense. But if it's something that you did in the past, you want to use past tense. So it's not like a paper where it has to be consistently past or present, because you're still going to put the things that you're currently doing on your resume. And if you're doing that, you're obviously going to use the present tense. So just make sure that you're using the right tense depending on when you did that activity. And don't feel like you have to quantify everything. So only when it's applicable, you don't have to, quantify something that's like low in numbers. If something is low in numbers or almost insignificant, then it's probably to your benefit that you don't add numbers, just because it'll make it look like a less successful attempt than if you did put in the numbers, if that makes sense. So if they're really like big significant numbers, then use those. But if they're smaller numbers or things that are like insignificant, like for example, for the student who said that they tutored, let's say if they only tutored one student, I mean, that compared to them saying they have 17, that's a big difference. So use your best judgment, and then use your available resources. So try to take advantage of all the resources that are out there on the internet, that people at your school. A lot of people like to do resume critiques for their students, so always take advantage of that. You could visit your career center. A lot of places offer really, really good resume critiques that you don't have to pay for, especially for a student. You shouldn't be paying for it. And use that to your benefit to make your resume as strong as possible. All right, so that is the end of the presentation, but I do still have the end poll for you all. Oh, okay. You have a question. So it says, is that a full sentence or should it be bullet points? I feel like that would take up so much space. All right, so yeah, like I mentioned, it shouldn't be a full sentence. I know the examples that we used are pretty long, but I would say they should be bullet points. Yeah, so don't use full sentences, and they're almost always going to be bullet points when you're talking about multiple things. So it does take up a lot of space, but there are ways to like format your resume. Use a smaller font, change the space, the spaces between the lines. There's a lot of ways to save space on documents, so that would be my advice. But yes, they should be bullet points. So thank you for your question. But lastly, let's do the post poll. So same questions as the pre-poll, but hopefully you all learned something. All right. Cool. Thanks everyone for taking that. And so with that, that's going to be the end of the webinar. Thanks everyone for joining, and I'll see you on the hub. Bye.